everywhere you go, you're going to take your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, your associations, your past, your memories, your identification with form, your identification as this body. You're going to take your slavery and try to find freedom.
It's like
it's closed, right?
It's closed. It's like set. It's like limited. It's like only what you know.
Been in a book somewhere, right? I would.
That's exactly right. Somebody would have told me.
Just the idea that hey, you can do that for yourself, you know, and it's not going to interfere with your job or your wife or your family. Hello, my name is Richard Miller, and welcome to Never Not Here. This show is our way to take a fresh new look at the world, and maybe to find out more about life than we've ever imagined. So we want to find a key, if there is one, or at least get a hint to have the full experience of this vast and marvelous universe. Probably we're all pretty good at looking outwards. So, if there's more to life, maybe we're just standing right on top of it. In that case, it's our basic assumptions that have to be turned over and reworked. Because if we truly believe something is dead obvious, well, isn't that the last place we're ever going to look? We'll never even check it out. So to help us today in our investigation, we have our guest who's made some fascinating breakthroughs into how simple and beautiful life already is. So please help me welcome Mr. John Sherman. Hi, John, and welcome to Chicago.
Thank you. Hello, Richard. I'm very happy to be here. It has been the case for actually thousands of years that great beings have appeared among us with an announcement to make, with news to bring to us. And it's my experience that they all have had pretty much the same thing to say, which boils down to this. The only problem anywhere to be found, the root cause of all of our misery and striving and suffering and confusion, is a false belief about what we are. Now this runs through pretty much all of the spiritual traditions that have appeared in the world from the very beginning. The problem is misidentification. The problem is a false belief about what we are. I think that as I said, this is common. This is what they all have told us. What we've done with that, however, is to try to discover, if we've done anything at all with it, what we've done with it is try to discover what it is we falsely believe ourselves to be, and then find a way to get rid of that. You know, and in most of the spiritual traditions, what we falsely believe ourselves to be goes by the name of ego. So the false belief itself goes by the name of ego identification. And most of the spiritual practices that have appeared since these great beings have made this announcement to us are done with the purpose of either destroying ego, destroying the sense of me as a separate individual, separate from you, subject to the vicissitudes of life and so forth, or to create a state of mind that's conducive to the destruction of ego, peace and calm and thoughtlessness or even mindfulness and so forth. It hasn't done us much good. I mean, we've been at this for 4,000 or 5,000 years now, and it hasn't done us much good. You just look around and see. Look anywhere you look, and you'll see that human beings, basically, are on a course of self-destruction.
By ego, you more or less mean the identification, right? Because
if people... By ego, I mean the literal translation of ego, which is I. By ego, I mean I, and that's what is meant in the spiritual traditions. The problem is, everybody agrees, the problem is a false identification with the idea of I. Therefore, what I have to do is destroy the idea of I. And that doesn't work. I mean, it obviously doesn't work. If it does, go on, continue. You're doing fine.
That's more or less talking to a spiritual seeker, but people are still identified before they even ever heard of the word
That's right.
ego.
That's right.
I mean, they're out there doing their thing, and
That's
trying
right.
to manage their life and manipulate things.
And that identification constitutes a false belief about what I am.
What's important to me,
about what I am. What's important to me is to know the truth of what I am. That solves it all. I suffer from the false belief, basically, that I am my life, by which I mean this entire universe of thought, experience, vision, memory, expectation, good thoughts, bad thoughts, states, good states, bad states, and so forth, as it unfolds endlessly in time. I believe myself to be my life. I mean, that's what we all believe ourselves to be, our lives.
I mean, like that, my conditions of my life, like
my life,
my wife, and my job, and my
all of it. The feeling that I am a separate individual, the minute by minute experience of myself within this body, the way this body operates, the things that I see around me, the lights and the walls, the stars and the sun, all of that, the whole thing, the whole construction of experience, that is my life. And if I believe myself to be my life, and that belief is so profound and so deep that I don't even know it to be a belief, I mean,
just
it's
think
obvious.
That's the way it is. That's the way it is, right?
Then, what happens in my life holds great import to me. In truth, I am at stake.
It's vital. Your survival depends
that's
upon
right.
what
I am at
happens in your
stake
life.
here in this life. If I have bad thoughts, I am at risk because I have bad thoughts. If I have negative desires, I am at risk because I have negative desires. If I want what I shouldn't want, or even if I want what I do want, I am at risk. If I want what I shouldn't want and get it, I'm in trouble. If I want what I shouldn't want and get it, I'm in trouble. If I want what I should want, chances are I'm not going to get it anyway, and I'm still in trouble. So you see, if it's true that I am my life, that I am this character in motion, minute by minute, second by second, hour by hour, then I have to pay very close attention to what's happening in this life. I have to be something that's worthwhile, something that is savable, something that can last, that can get some safety to it. I have to pay really close attention. I am at stake in everything. If I have bad thoughts, I have to do something to get rid of those thoughts, or to explain them, or to deny them, or to rationalize them. If I have inappropriate desires, then I have to do something to repress those desires, to deny them, or explain them, or rationalize them. And if I express them, then I'm in even more trouble. Now, and if I do things that are bad, if I do things that are stupid, I'm at risk. Now, the truth is anyone can see, if they take just a second to look into it, that even in the most intimate phenomena that arise within me as my life, I have nothing to say about any of it anyway. I mean, can you think me a thought? Can you, by force of will, create a thought? Or can you make a thought go away? Really?
I don't think you can make one go away, but it seems like you can think one.
Well, think one then.
Go
ahead,
if
quickly.
I just say,
think
I think
one.
your eyes are blue, I mean, is that a thought, or is? I mean,
Did
it's
you
something
do
that
that?
comes in my.
Look and see.
It's real
Look and see.
subtle, isn't it?
Yeah, right. If you stop for a second, just stop for a second. Don't say anything. Don't try to direct anything. It will become really obvious to you that thoughts arise on their own, and that there's a moment of claiming of them that occurs subsequent to their arrival. I mean, you don't even know what the thought is until it appears. You can't possibly pre-will a thought. The idea of pre-willing it itself is a thought that just appears.
Yeah, I don't know if you can really arrive at that with kind of like this logical saying, "Well, just look and see," because it's so tiny and minute. So, I mean,
Well,
the fact is that thought pops
and it's
in.
really not
Okay, the thought
necessary.
pops in, But the fact that, you know, more than one kind of thought can pop in, and it seems like I can say, okay, now I'm going to think about your hands, now I'm going to think about your eyes, now I'm going to think about the room.
Well, but really, look and see. Are you really thinking about something or just moving your attention?
It's hard to know. Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, how about that?
Moving your
Turns
attention
out,
is about what
and
it
it really doesn't, you know, the thing about, there's no need for anyone to come to the conclusion that they have nothing to say about what they think or what they do. That really is beside the point. It is my own experience and the experience of most of the people that I speak with that a moment's reflection reveals to them that they really don't have much to say about anything to begin with. But that, you don't need to see that. You see, it's not necessary that you take on a new belief structure about the nature of your life because you're not your life. It's not necessary that you come to see that really your life is, oh, I don't know, spontaneously arising or something, because that's not going to do you any good anyway. So long as you believe yourself to be your life, the only thing that'll produce is the idea of being out of control, and which is terrifying.
Right.
Right?
In other words, that's something that makes more sense when you're looking back on it and saying,
Yes,
oh,
that's
yeah, I
right.
see that things
That's
are just
right.
popping up and they're
That's
just
right.
arising, you know.
But
But looking forward for someone to just have a brand new introduction and say,
right.
things are
And
arising, you say,
most,
whoa, where's
most
he talking
spiritual
about?
teaching has to do with this is the way you should really believe yourself to be, instead of that way. That's what most spiritual teaching does. You should see that you are actually pure and true, or your life is predetermined, or you know, stuff like that.
Somehow that takes you away from life, it seems to me, because it sets
Right,
up
it
a
does.
two. Like, you're here, but you're not quite good enough because you could be here
That's right.
with a little bit of work,
That's right.
you know. And then you get in totally into more
That's
managing of your life, trying to manage, you know, your spiritual side instead of managing
right.
your salary and managing your boss
That's
and
right.
managing the traffic outside.
That's exactly right.
I mean, it's not
All that
much
happens
different,
in
is it?
that shift, right, is the shift comes to a spiritual solution to the problem rather than the material solution to the problem that has been what you've been pursuing for all the rest of your life. And the spiritual solution to your problem is no more effective than the material solution to your problem, because the spiritual solution to your problem, like the material solution, starts with the preconceived certainty that it is the life that must change, that something has to be done about your life. You have to become more spiritual.
Yeah.
Or you have
wonder
to
if that
become
isn't
less
that
spiritual.
religion was at one time maybe the tool of the state, where they were trying to manage the population. And so
Religion is just like the mind. I mean, it's all mind. But religion is the same as the individual human mind, which, when hearing the truth, often goes into a frenzy of trying to explain it, trying to do something about it, trying to make it useful or worthwhile or whatever. Religion is just like the rest of human endeavor. There's no difference. And it just is one of the many things in the array that we are presented with as choices as to what we should be. Because really, that's what's at stake here. I have to be what is worthwhile, which I may define as having a lot of money, or I may define as having the right relationship,
lots of friends.
or lots of friends, or I may define as being religious and being close to God, and
maybe
so
part
forth.
of the community and
right.
vote or be a politician or.
But if it's true that the belief that you are your life is false,
Oh boy, that changes everything.
it changes everything. Then what? Then what does it matter if you're religious or irreligious, this life? What does it matter if you're smart or stupid in this life? What does it matter if you're good or bad in this life? If it's not you, what is that to you? And why is there any impulse whatsoever within you to wage war against your life in order to make it what it should be?
Wow, that's such a revolutionary thing, because I don't know about our viewers, but for me, for decades and decades, I never even thought of anything like I may not be my life.
Yeah,
I
really.
may not be all these circumstances that I am judging to be limited or not as good as the Joneses next door.
And this insight that we are not our life can be the first step. Just the willingness to consider the possibility that this idea that I am this life, this really wondrous and quite amazing and interesting phenomenon that is endlessly unfolding, the willingness to consider that, to just reflect upon that for a moment, can be the first step.
Is there any way that we just stumble across that, or do we need that? Or we just need the message from these great beings that are sharing this?
Well, you see,
what they found out.
I think all of us already always know that. So the chance of stumbling upon it is really slim, because if we already always know that, and we are stuck in the conviction that I am my life, then that means that the knowing of it itself is not seen.
It's already been bypassed.
It's already been bypassed. It's already been put in its place, in whatever place it is.
It's down there somewhere, and we don't know.
Right. It's not what. And if we think about this experience of knowing it all, we think of it as something else, something that's not what we think it is.
Let me ask you a question, because but just a moment ago we were talking about people trying to be spiritual, and if you're doing the material, and I think vocabulary is so important, because it can, just the slightest word change can throw you off. It just takes you off. And so we're saying material and spiritual as if there was a difference, because like if the spiritual is the core of the material, I mean, how could there be a material without a spiritual? We just talk like that.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, we just talk like that as if there was two things, and I think it's kind of confusing.
And this is because there is within us this great urgent desire to know what we are. And the desire to know what we are manifests as a desire to do something about what we think we are, to change it, to make it better, to make it spiritual rather than material. So in order to find something for me to be that's better and more worthy and more deserving than what I have always thought I was, then I have to have categories of being, I suppose. Spiritual, material, whatever. But words don't do much good.
They can throw you off a lot. Maybe they don't bring you very close, but they can really throw you for a loop.
Exactly. They're much better at putting distance.
Misleading you,
misleading you than they are in being helpful to you at all.
Yeah.
Even these words that we are spewing here today can be misleading if they are, any words can be misleading. If I say your only problem is a false belief about what you are, well, you start figuring out what I mean by that and what I'm saying by that.
Hey, I don't have any belief about what I am.
Yeah, right. And where are you looking to determine that? Well, you're looking within the history of your experience and your beliefs and your activities and actions and aversions and all of that. That's where you're looking. In other words,
basically your program.
You're looking into your life.
Yeah.
Trying to see whether there's anything in your life that conforms with that statement. So the words aren't much help. I am endlessly amazed that I hear from people what great help they get from listening to words. I am endlessly amazed that there was a time when I would have to agree with them, that I felt that there was great help to be found if only I could just find the right words. If only I could just find the right way of expressing what it is that silently I am so certain of. If I could hear from somebody else how I can describe myself, because that's what it's about. That's what the mistake is about, trying to describe myself based on review of all the evidence, which is my thoughts, my memories, my history, and so
feelings,
forth. My actions, my desires.
So all the words come out basically out of the mind. And I heard someone say once, there was something kind of funny, but he said the mind is like the garbage can. Not saying that it was bad or stinky or anything, but he says that everybody that goes by it throws something in. and it's the only thing that everybody tosses something. And so every experience is throws something more in the mind, and then somehow we have to try to make a explanation of life out of all that stuff. And how could it possibly?
Yes, and of course, once we see that, then there's a aversion that arises to the mind, whatever that is. But the mind is not the problem. It's not even a problem that it is the receptacle of everybody who has something to say that walks by. That's not a problem. That can all go on. I mean, the announcement and the claim from the very beginning has been what I just said, which is we all, already and forever, know the truth of what we are. We all already know that we are not our life. And so if that's the case too, first, if the case is that I am not my life, and secondly, that for all of my life, and all of your life, and all of everybody else's life, we have absolutely known that, then what happens in the mind is irrelevant. Whether the mind is smart or stupid, whether the mind is a receptacle of garbage or perfume, it has no bearing on this essential matter whatsoever. The mind, what we know about the mind, I mean, even to speak of the mind is a little bit ridiculous. What is the mind? You know, show me a mind. The mind is the whole life. It is the whole life. Past, present, future, memory, expectation, thought, desire, aversion. That's the mind. It has no independent existence from this endlessly unfolding life, which I believe myself to be. Now, if I believe myself to be this mind, this life, this thoughts, and I see, if I somehow come to the understanding that that belief is at the source of my problems, what am I going to do about it? Well, what we mostly do about it is try to do something about the life, about the mind. We try to quiet the mind, to do away with thought, to do away with desire, to become, I don't know, clearer and more peaceful, silent. We try to do something about this life, always. What else are we going to do?
Well, first of all, it feels good anyhow.
And it doesn't work. It feels good.
Those times,
yes, it feels good
times
for
when
a
it
time,
works, and then it feels bad when it goes away. You know,
feels
because
worse than
even
it
worse,
did.
because
That's
then you
right.
say, "Oh gosh,
That's right.
I want to get back over there."
So we should know that nothing we've done to try to make the life better has been of any use to us. I mean, you know, I have nothing against trying to figure out a better way to pay your rent or
A good investment,
or any of that stuff,
good
because all of that
education
stuff,
and all that stuff.
all of that stuff happens in the life, and it gets along quite well without my involvement in it, because I'm not the life. I am not. So this essential insight, the insight that the only problem, not the fundamental problem, the only problem in all of humanity is a false belief about what we are. This has been around forever. 4,000 years, anyway, forever. Long time. And nothing's come of it. Still.
Not that many people are really have attached to that or really done anything with it. I mean, most people just say, "Yeah, I am the life, and I better get busy." Cause,
that's right. Or, yeah, that might be true, and but what can I do?
That's nice, but in the meantime, I got to do.
Right.
I got 10 appointments today. You know,
got 10 appointments today, and I got to go. I don't know, kill my girlfriend or do something. Right? I got more important things to do.
Get straight with her anyhow. Right.
Right. Go to war. Make money. Be good.
Yeah, right the right, or somehow. Some people want to try to right the right. Other people are. Yeah, justice is a terrible thing.
Justice is.
It's terrible because people, even the unjust people, are doing things because they're trying to get the justice for them because they said the justice system went awry and screwed them out of something. And
yes.
If they could just,
We see we all have a strong. I mean. There's two things that operate within us in our relationship with our lives, right? And one is to justify, to say it's your fault. You've done this to me. The justice system has done this to me. The medical system has done this to me.
Right.
The economic system has done this to me. This is the reason why I am so miserable and so
rich cats, the fat tycoons,
filled
the
with
bankers of the world
self-hatred,
have,
right? Yeah.
have altered our currency.
And the other way is the reverse, which is to say, I am worthless, it's all my fault.
Oh boy.
If only I could do something better, if only I could become more, a better citizen or a better parent or a better wife or husband or a better moneymaker or a better spiritual person, a better meditator.
All those thoughts always kind of haunt us a little bit.
If only,
they come and go.
they're both running all the time.
Yeah. But is there no middle ground, or
Tandem.
aren't we even searching for the middle ground? It's your fault, or it's my fault, or it's nobody's fault in the middle, or what?
So long as I am my life, that's got to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
If I am my life, then it's got to be my fault or your fault. My problems, my misery, my...
Because we're searching for a cause and effect.
That's right.
And so then where's that cause so
It's
that
gotta
we
be
can alter the
somebody's fault.
cause and get a better effect?
It could
right?
be just the fact that life sucks, right? Which,
Yeah.
of course, is inaccurately...
There's a few sweet spots, but a lot of
Yeah,
times
but
the bad
overall,
spots
right.
seem to come around again.
even
say,
the
oh,
Buddha-
you again. What are you doing here?
Even the Buddha said that
Yeah.
life is suffering. Life sucks. That's the first noble truth of Buddhism. I'm not sure the Buddha said that, though. I think
Yeah.
that may have been an opinion about others, an opinion of others about what the Buddha was saying.
Uh-huh. It was kind of added on later, too.
Most of what we hear about what the Buddha and all these other really great beings have said come much after the fact and is the opinion of others about what they said, because it's impossible to actually to receive fully the simple, radical, unbelievable, incredible reality of what they were saying, which is that the only problem is a false belief about what you are. Anything you do within this that you believe yourself to be to try to find lasting fulfillment and satisfaction must fail. Because you falsely believe yourself to be that. It can't hurt you or help you in any way, anything that happens in this life. And that's just too...
That's the message, right?
That's the message.
Right.
That's
Now,
the
how
first
do we-
part of the message.
How do we get closer to that message instead of just hearing it from others? How do we somehow let it flower within us?
We see, and this is really important to see, it is of no consequence that you understand that. Really. Even that is of no consequence. It's not, it can be helpful to you if you reflect on that possibility that you're not your life. But it really isn't necessary if you even think about that. Really.
That's good, because I would say I've gone decades without ever thinking about that.
That's right. And the truth is that during all the decades that you weren't thinking about that, still you were the same as you are now. Still, according to those who we have such regard for, still you are, well, untouched and untouchable. You don't need to know that. You don't need to know that the problem is a false belief that you are your life. That's not a requirement. It's helpful. It's one of the few concepts that can be helpful. But you don't need it. You're still the same. I mean, if it's true that you're not your life, you are not your life whether you believe yourself to be your life or not. You are not your life whether anybody convinces you of the possibility of that or not. If it's true that you are not your life, then even if you take up arms against the idea that you are not your life, still you're not your life. If it's true. Right? So I don't offer too much advice as to how to bring myself closer to the
How to get a taste of that. not
understanding that
necessarily,
I am not
right?
my life. I mean, it's useful in my work to get people's attention and to lead to, if the problem is that I falsely believe myself to be my life, then what's the solution? If that's the problem, what's the solution?
The solution has to be the truth.
That's it.
It's the only solution, right?
It's the only solution.
But
and the truth is
the truth is not going to be something I'm going to believe, right? Because I mean,
no,
if
I
I
mean,
believe
it,
it's
not the truth.
It's not the truth. It
Then it's something you have
can't be that remote.
That's right. Can't be that remote.
That I have to believe it.
But the solution, obviously, if the problem is a false belief, the only solution is the truth. No matter what we're talking about, no matter whether we're talking about engineering or space flight or praying or spiritual practice or anything. If the problem is a false belief, then the only solution can be the truth.
Let's talk a little bit about, just a moment, about this false belief, because it's kind of like a human condition, right? Because, I mean, I was born into it. I didn't really start believing that I didn't go wrong in my education or something like that. It's just like my parents believed that, and and they just passed it to me, and my teachers believed it, and the elders of my community believed it, and the elders of my country believed it, and
the whole and throughout human history, the whole weight and momentum of human consciousness is founded on that belief. Anything you see, and when you read about human beings and what they do, you can see that they do what they do because they are absolutely certain that what they are is their life. There's no way for you to escape that. There's no way for you to dodge that bullet as you see.
So you said something really interesting, because you said the whole momentum. So that as if you're saying consciousness has a momentum, which is like the whole all our forebears.
That's right.
Have this,
That's
and somehow it's not that easy just to plunk out of it.
Actually, it's very easy.
Is?
It's actually much easier done than said.
It's not like physics where momentum actually has a, like a rock
There's
rolling is hard to stop, right?
No, but
not that kind of momentum.
But there's more. It's less than that. You see, human consciousness and human thought has a momentum, and trying to arrest it or shift it is very much impossible, which is also the reason why you don't have anything to say about what thoughts appear within you, because as is popularly seen today, everything works on everything. It's the butterfly effect. Everything works on everything. Everything that brings us here into this studio today, the fact that right in this moment, here we are, we're sitting here, you and I and the people behind the cameras, speaking about this, the entire history of the universe is behind the appearance of this phenomenon of us sitting here together talking.
So this is part of the momentum that we're all immersed in, and it's the river that we're all riding.
That's right, but the river is not what you are, you see. So the momentum, once you are attached to human consciousness, the momentum of human consciousness over all of the thousands of years that it's been in play carries you along as human consciousness. There's nothing you can do about that. Nothing.
This is really a beautiful metaphor, because then when you think you're going to try to change momentum and try to change this huge and massive river, it's like, forget it, You just have to be graceful in the flow, and then...
And we all pretty much instinctively and intuitively know that to be the case, which is why, as human beings, we are so almost universally pessimistic and skeptical. When we take on optimistic ideas, they don't last very long.
In other words, that's just a veneer, and below we're kind of like saying...
Pretty much, we're all pretty much pessimistic and skeptical, because we have a strong intuitive and insight into the nature of this world and its intractability, the momentum of it. The momentum
just doesn't change. Things keep popping back up.
Everything, it all changes.
The surface changes, but
That's
the
right.
core just seems to be so...
Everything changes but you.
Powerful.
That's the river itself. If you watch a river, It's endlessly swirling and all eddies, and different areas of the riverbed produce different kinds of phenomena on the surface and so forth.
Every obstacle in there
Everything's changing.
Makes something other.
Vicissitude is the
flow.
nature of humanity. But you don't change. And you know that. And that's the truth. So the solution, again, doesn't have anything to do with reversing, resisting, or doing anything about the momentum of human consciousness, which holds us all to believe that we are human consciousness. Obviously, there's nothing we can do about that. So the solution has to be much simpler than that, and much closer to home than that. And the solution cannot be anything that can be found within this massive river of human consciousness. Can't be.
Again, I mean, I'm just really going on this idea of this the momentum of this huge river, and I just realized that everything is futile, done to resist that momentum, and something
it's
like
less than
saying,
futile.
Yeah.
Nothing's done within that.
Nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
We're churning away, like trying to go against this massive
right.
flow, and really, it's absolute zero.
And sometimes we get lucky, right? Like, man, I really want to go to Chicago. I'm sitting in Ojai, California. I really want to go to Chicago. I really want to go to Chicago. And just as some stroke of luck, and really, when Carla and I travel around, whenever we travel somewhere, it's always astounding to us when we actually get in the car to set out, even though there might be weeks and months of planning and preparation and reservations and all of that, right? When actually we find ourselves in the car, we're just astonished. How could this happen? It can't be the result of what we have done. It just happened. Can't be. So I want to go to Chicago, and somehow or other things came together so that here I am in Chicago. Now, I can say, weren't we great? Didn't we do good?
Right away. That's a tendency
boy,
to possess
I
that,
made
right?
that desire happen. I made it come true. Carla and I just did
worked
everything.
Hard, we did it all ourselves, or otherwise
did it all ourselves, called
you could
for
say
help.
we focused our attention, and we were like lasers,
Right.
we a spiritual solution.
So it worked. I did it. But if instead I was saying, boy, I really don't want to go to Chicago. I hate to leave Ojai. I am so happy just resting in Ojai. We have this little tiny house that looks over the Ojai Meadows, right? And it's really beautiful. Ojai is really quiet. The truth is, whenever I get home to Ojai, I never want to leave. Never. And so if I say, boy, the last thing in the world I want to do is go to Chicago, if that's what I was saying back 6 months ago, then I would have to say, well, boy, I failed at that, didn't I?
You sure failed, yeah. Maybe you are.
And the only difference there is what I thought I wanted 6 months ago. And because in one case, what I thought I wanted came to pass, I assume that I did really well, and it was my doing, that it was my work that made that happen. If, on the other hand, what I thought I wanted was to stay in Ojai, then I have to say, well, how in the world did this happen? Why? I didn't want this to happen.
Those guys did it to me.
Those
right?
guys did it to me, right.
Yeah.
In both cases, here we are, sitting in the studio.
Right.
In Chicago, talking to each other. Doesn't matter what I thought I wanted. Here we are, talking to each other. And all of that's okay. The absolute magnificence of reality is that none of that needs to change. I am perfectly allowed, permitted, and it's perfectly wonderful for me to want this and not want that. For it's actually perfectly allowed and wonderful for me to hate this and love that. What's that to me? Do I have some say over that?
So you're saying that's just part of the momentum, in other words.
It's
and
just
so
part
why
of the
try
momentum.
to channel the river, Because
That's
if
right.
you realize you're not the river,
That's right. If
then
you're not
it really
the river,
doesn't matter.
then what's that to you?
It's just like not so closely identified with the river, or maybe
That's right.
totally disidentified. I don't know.
Well, see, when we try to find some degree of disidentification or identification, then we get back into the same old of spiritual practice, of stages of the path and so forth, as if it were the case that I am my life, and that in order to escape from this prison that is my life, I have to engage in some kind of activity that will free me from it. But I have never not been free.
So
I have never been this life.
So disidentification is definitely not a method. It's more like a result, or like
It's a result.
It's something we might notice. Oh my gosh, look
yeah,
back
right.
there! I was disidentified.
Right.
But it just
After
happened.
a while.
It just happens,
That's
you know.
right.
Like I mean, with
But now here is the really surprising and shocking reality of what you call disidentification, what I call truth. The shocking reality of it. It shocked me. It shocked it right out of my mind. What were you saying?
I was just saying that the disidentification is not a method, because like a method means
yeah, I
like
know
we're
what you're
trying to
talking
do
about.
something. We're trying to disidentify now
Right,
so that I
right.
can end up somewhere.
Right, right.
But if you just realize,
But that's not
like,
what I was going to speak about. What I was going to speak about was the idea that what I have to do is get distance from my life, that I have to be disidentified with my life. And in truth, all I need to do is see the truth. In truth, all I need to do is see the truth.
to realize you already are
And I've
have
already
distance.
known it, and have never not been. I have never been my life. No matter how fervently I believe myself to be my life, it was never true. And the shocking outcome of that is that over time I discover that in the absence of the belief that I am my life, I settle into my life with a degree of intimacy that I could never even imagine when I thought it was me.
Wow, intimacy, and could I say efficiency too? I mean, it just
I don't know
flows
if
so
I'm all
easy.
that.
You don't want to get it.
Well,
Efficiency means
you
like
know,
you're trying to get somewhere, right?
Yeah, life, and the other part of it is that life gets much easier when I'm not involved in it.
Just a gracefulness then.
And I don't know why that would be. There's no metaphysical story that I can tell you. I probably could make one up, but it's of no use. All I know is this: that as the belief that I am my life has vanished, and it takes time. It doesn't happen. There's no this idea of a flash of spiritual lightning in which everything is cleared up and bad thoughts go and I see everything with perfect clarity and so forth. That's all made up, because you see, I have always seen everything with perfect clarity. And it takes time for the reality of myself to saturate what I have thought myself to be. But as this belief vanishes, I find that I love my life. I mean, being in a human life is magnificent. It is unbelievably wondrous, with all of its travails, with all of its vicissitudes, with all of its fearfulness and terribleness and all of that. Being in a human life is quite beautiful and quite amazing. Now that I know it's not me, now that I know I'm not at stake in it.
At stake. That's it. That's really important.
And the only way to be finished with that is to see the truth. The only way to be finished with that is to be finished with the belief that you are your life. And the only way to rid yourself of that is to see the truth. Nothing else works. Nothing.
So if you're not at stake, you really don't have to manage anything.
That's right.
You could just enjoy it.
That's right.
And really, life is a miracle. I mean, just
It is.
from the tiniest blade of grass in cricket to the
is.
hugest supernova, it's all a
That's right.
huge
You are,
miracle.
as a human being or as a blade of grass or as anything else, you are the eyes and ears and taste and nose of infinite awareness. That's what this, awareness calls forth this whole universe in order that it can see itself. The whole universe, you, me, this stage, this studio, the stars, the suns, the moon and planet, all spontaneously and naturally called forth by awareness in order that it can see itself.
It seems like that what takes time is just the trust, the trust that my life will go on, will happen without me pulling. And maybe there is no handles. I just dream there are handles, and I'm working all the controls and
the handles
of my life. And I think
like,
if I let go, my gosh, where am I going to go?
It's kind of like you're at the helm of a ship.
And it's not hooked up to the
It's
rudder.
not hooked up to the rudder.
So, but anyhow, I mean, that's what takes time, is just developing that trust, and then you say, boy, it's just I can let, and then you let go more. So
no, I can't even agree with that. I can't even agree with that.
I'm trying to put a few words
to
it.
I mean, trust. Trust doesn't do you any good. I mean, how do you trust? What does that mean?
Not trust as a doing, but trust as a realizing.
Yeah.
So doing is like trying to do it and manipulate it and work these controls and handles and be the manager is what we find out that's not.
Listen to me, Richard.
Yeah.
Even for all of your life, when you have been working these controls and wheels and trying desperately to manage it, even while all of that was going on, you were not your life. There's never been a time when you have been your life. So that the elimination of all of that is beside the point. The only thing that's to the point is the truth. And we waste a lot of our time trying to do something about this. First of all, understanding that I am foolishly manipulating the gears and wheels, and then trying to do something about stopping that from happening. But I tell you, you don't have to do anything about any of that. That's all a sideshow. It's all a distraction. All you have to do is see the truth. Really. Which has always been here, which has never changed. That's what distinguishes truth, as I speak of it, from everything else. It doesn't change. It is permanent. It's always the same.
It's hard to think of something that's permanent,
It's impossible to think of something as permanent.
The only thing I could think of, and that's what I titled the show, is Never Not Here. When you always said never not here, and then I realized, gosh, as long as I can remember, I've never not been here.
That's right. That's what's permanent. That's it. That's what's permanent, and you've never changed, and you know that too. You are the same as we sit here speaking as you were when you were 3 years old. You are that background that is taken by surprise when it sees this body in the mirror. Whoa, where did that happen?
Where do these years come from?
And the truth is, truly, and you know it to be the truth, you are the same now as you were when you were 3. And it is that permanence that you're looking for.
I'm looking all through the pile of sand and going through every grain. And,
that's right.
And
that's right.
Just kind of a horrible misunderstanding.
So we, in this time, are really lucky. So some years back in India, a 16-year-old boy, his name was Venkataraman. This 16-year-old boy stumbled upon reality. It happened in a dramatic moment in his consciousness in which he believed that he was about to die. He was taken by a great terror and a great fear of death. And he knew it was imminent. He knew that the time was here. He was going to die. There was no getting around it. And he's only 16 years old. And by some stroke of luck, instead of seeking help, crying out, he instead was drawn to looking to see just exactly who dies, what it is for me to die. And so that instead of running from it, he wanted to know the truth of who dies. And he imagined his own death. He imagined, he wasn't a really sophisticated person, right? He was only 16 years old. He didn't have an advanced spiritual understanding or an advanced philosophical or metaphysical understanding of things. He just had his 16-year-old fear. So he imagined his body dying, and he imagined it, rigor mortis setting in, and what it would be like when the breath stopped and the heart stopped beating and so forth. He didn't do a really very sophisticated job of this technique. But all of this was done in order that he could see what he really was. Was he the body that died, the mind, the life? What happens when the life is gone? What happens when there is no thought? What happens when the body stops? The heart comes to rest. The breath is gone.
These are great questions, I'll tell you. But
Yes.
Who's got the courage to try to find the
Well,
answer?
Ramana did,
Yeah.
just by sheer luck.
What do they say that? Was he of an anesthesia too, or was he just? Or there's something else, or it doesn't really matter?
I've never heard anybody conjecture about what
Uh-huh.
actually happened to him. In any event, what he discovered was that when everything else was gone, he remained
Wow.
exactly the same. Nothing changed. That his being required nothing. Required no thought, no life, no breath, no heartbeat, no understanding, no lack of understanding. That with or without all of that, he remained the same. He took a train to a town in India called Tiruvannamalai, and he went to the temple there because he didn't know anything else to do. And he stayed there for 12 years without speaking. And when anyone asked him why he wouldn't speak, he indicated that he had taken a vow of silence, but he later told us that that was really a lie. He just didn't want to talk to anybody. And that's what he said in order to keep them away from him. Over time, he finally came out of the temple. I suspect that he had done some investigation and some reading and some study and so forth about these matters in order that he could put what had happened to him in some context so that he could speak about it. After 12 years, he left the temple, and people had discovered him there. The big thing came about Ramana, and people followed him around and actually ended up chasing him. He lived in caves. People would find the cave, and he'd move to another one.
Boy.
And they'd find the other one, and
We're probably not going to have time to tell all about Ramana, but Ramana's been real important in your life too, right? Maybe you can share a little bit about that, and then maybe we'll close this and we'll move to. We're going to do another.
well,
show
that's
together.
actually, I know, but that's actually what I was doing. I just want to introduce Ramana.
Right.
And Ramana is, and the most thing I want to make clear about this business of Ramana is that he is not spiritual, if practical. Ramana wasn't interested in spiritual discussion. He's practical. And it was he, in our time, who discovered the astonishing reality that any person who will look with all of their heart to find the truth of what they are and be satisfied with nothing less than the absolute certainty that this is the truth. Anyone who will do that saint or sinner, president or trash collector. Anyone who will do that will discover the truth of what they are, which is eternal freedom, which has nothing to do with your life. Nothing. And in that, the problem goes.
Say that over a little bit in a way like, I mean, you were saying that, is it an intensity or is it just an earnestness of the desire, or is it just a repetition of it? Or, I mean, you said anyone that would look. Tell us what you said again.
Anyone who will look will find. You know, somebody else said, if you seek, you will find. That same somebody else is said to have said, the truth will set you free. And that's also what Ramana says. If you seek, you will find. And the truth will set you free. Anybody. Does it take determination? The determination is already here. It's my experience that the whole relationship that you have had with your life, the intensity of it, the drama of it, the passion of it, the confusion of it, all of that whole relationship that you've had with your life arises from already existing deep desire to know what you are, or to become what you ought to be, which is the same thing. So all you really have to do is look.
So that's for everybody. That's just not for spiritual seekers.
For everybody.
That's just for everybody.
In fact, people who don't have a spiritual background hear this much more quickly and easily than people that do, in my experience. But it's for all.
That's very, very interesting. Because we always thought the spiritual seeker was a kind of a club, you know, where some people just didn't feel a part of it. You know?
Well, it is kind of a club, isn't it? And some people don't feel a part of it, but everybody is absolutely, permanently in touch with the reality of what they are and don't require a club. You're here, aren't you? You're never not here, are you?
Those are magic words to me, you know.
There it
you
is.
told them to me many times, and then finally they sunk in enough that I wanted to tell everybody. And so we're rapidly approaching the close of this show. So
Okay.
I hope we really explained some things, or maybe not explained, but just touched on some points that will really fire some curiosity and desire and some. It doesn't have to be earnest. We just said that, right?
Right.
And
Look for yourself.
look for yourself.
Look for whatever it is that feels like you. And keep looking until you know beyond a doubt that you have found the truth of what you are. And everything else will be taken care of.
Those are very encouraging words, because it includes us all. There's no merit, or there's nothing required.
That's right.
It's just fabulous. So we'll be around in the coming weeks. Check our show out, and we're on every week. And so we're having some interesting conversations about really who it is that is having this conversation, who we are. And if we don't want to find that out, I mean, that's should be number one. So thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time.
Your beloved calls you here today to ask you for this dance.